Hey, hope you're doing well. Andy here from Drive Steady, and in this video I'm reviewing the BMW M850i Gran Coupe and telling you why I think it's one of the best looking BMWs on sale today. I'll also cover the interior, exterior, and take it for a quick drive. So let's get started with this review of the BMW M850i. Alright, so let's get started with the review by first thanking Porsche of downtown LA for allowing me to review this M850i today. If you're interested in this car or any other new or pre-owned Porsche product, make sure you give them a call. I've left their information in the description below. Now, let's get started with the exterior and the design of the M850. And as you could probably tell in the video title, I actually really like the way this 8 Series looks. From the front, it has a low and aggressive look to it with the icon laser lights and the proportional kidney grills, which is refreshing to see in a BMW nowadays. But the ones on this car are chrome finished. I wish they were in black. Make sure you get those when you're optioning the M850. But one of the things that surprised me about this car is how wide it is, and that gives it an immediate presence on the road. Then you come to the side with the 4-door coupe design highlighted by the sloping roof feeding into the M3 CSL style trunk. I think the 8 Series is by a long mile the best looking BMW on sale today. Now, the only car I could possibly argue looking better than this in the BMW lineup is the more expensive version of this, the M8 Gran Coupe, and I'll take mine in Isle of Man green, thank you very much, but the M850i looks pretty killer on its own. Alright, so because this has an M in its nameplate, of course it's got plenty of grunt coming from a 4.4 liter twin turbocharged V8 making 523 horsepower and 553 pounds-feet of torque. It's mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission, putting power down to all 4 wheels only. You cannot get a rear-wheel drive configuration in the M850i. You have to drop down to the 840i in order to get rear-wheel drive and of course the straight 6-cylinder engine. Now, one characteristic of this engine is that the turbos are mounted in between the cylinder banks, much like the Hot V setup in the Mercedes twin turbocharged V8s, and all of this equates to a 0 to 60 time of 3.7 seconds. Yes, this car is faster than my Shelby GT350 and has a lot more horsepower and a lot more torque as well. So these normal non-M BMWs have plenty of get up and go. Now, this thing is actually a pretty big car and it's pretty heavy as well, 4,750 some odd pounds. Gas mileage is 17 in the city, 24 on the highway for a combined average of 19. But putting all that aside, this thing also comes with a standard M Sport exhaust. So let me take you around back so you can take a listen to what this thing sounds like. So what did you think of the exhaust in the M850i? Sounds pretty good in my opinion, especially with the extra crackles and pops in the Sport and Sport Plus modes. Now let's talk about the cargo space, starting off with the trunk, and there are multiple ways of opening it, 4 ways to be exact. There's a button on the interior, there's a button on the key, there's also comfort access right here on top of the license plate, and there's also the kicking motion basically underneath the diffuser down there. So when you click the comfort access button here, and it's electronically opening, which is always a wonderful, wonderful feature, and you're greeted with a really nice amount of space, surprisingly good for a 4-door quote-unquote coupe car, and there's 15.5 cubic feet of space in the M850i or in the 8 series in general. And I could easily see you fitting 2 larger suitcases in here and possibly another medium-sized duffel bag and whatnot. So there's plenty of storage space for your stuff if you're using this on a daily basis, and also if you're going to use it on a weekend getaway to take your family and whatnot. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is, I believe because of the way the sloping roof is on the M850i, the opening for the trunk isn't as big as, let's say, a 7 series or even a 5 series. It's somewhat short, but still not intrusive to where you can't get things in. And finally, closing the trunk, obviously electronic closing as well. There's a button right here. You push that and it gracefully just closes without you having to put in any effort. So now, with that out of the way, let me take you around to the side and talk to you very quickly about the wheels, tires, brakes, and suspension in this M850i. Alright, so continuing on the theme of M, this thing does have a pretty sporty suspension setup, starting off with adaptive M shocks. So this gives the car the ability to switch between a softer and a firmer ride. You also have the ability to do this via the drive modes yourself. And it also has a active M rear limited slip differential, something that is very common on the true M cars like the M8, the M5, M3, M4. Now, switching gears and talking about the wheels, these are actually really cool looking and very uncommon. They have a gray finish, they have multiple spokes, and something you don't really see on the M850i. Now, they're still 20 inches on all 4 corners, 20 by 8 up front and 20 by 9 in the rear. They have a 245 section tire wrapping them up front and a 275 in the rear. Now, switching inside the wheelbarrow, you get standard M Sport brakes on the M50i. They're 15.5 inch rotors up front and 14 inches in the rear. The calipers are painted in the beautiful blue M Sport color, giving it a really nice flare and a nice contrast to the darker wheel and the darker paint on this M850i. So now, with that out of the way, let me jump onto the interior and tell you what it's like in there. Alright, so now the interior of the M850i, starting off with the quality topic. And I think the quality in here, the interior, is actually very nice. It's nicely put together. Granted, this is still practically a brand new car. It only has 3,000 miles on it, but I can tell that the leather and everything, the fit and finish, there are no squeaks, there are no rattles in here, some of those common gremlins in new cars. You don't get any of that. It feels solidly put together. There is still some plastic here and there, but I think that's to be expected. In some of the more expensive cars I've driven, there's still plastic in those things. There is some high quality touch points and buttons, but one of the most annoying things for me in basically all BMWs are the plastic buttons here that they have for the air conditioning controller. In the 7 series, they're all metal buttons, and I'm not sure why, at least even in the 8 series, they're not metal buttons. They kind of put metal buttons here in the center, but surrounded by plastic air conditioning controlling buttons. So that's my only gripe as far as quality goes and the buttons. Now, the design. This is somewhat of a more subtle design. It's more contemporary. There isn't a lot of flash in here. The Mercedes designs are a little bit more luxurious and a little bit more refined. So if that's what you're after in here, I would say it's a very subdued interior. One thing I love about this thing is the optional crystal shifter piece and the trimming around it on some of the buttons and the dials here. Fantastic touch. I highly recommend the crystal shifter option. Now let's talk about overall comfort and size. So this is a plenty large enough interior, even though this has a sloping roof. At 5'11", I have plenty of headroom. Somebody 6 feet or 6'1", 6'2" should not have any issues sitting in here. As far as the comfort of the seat, it's a very comfortable seat. It does have all the normal levels of adjustability, forward, backwards. It has lumbar adjustability and inflating and deflating both bolsters. And the bolsters actually, when inflated, they're not the most aggressive sports car type inflated bolster. They actually feel pretty comfortable. This is a heated and cooled seat as standard, so that's always wonderful. You do have a heated steering wheel as well. Now let me switch to the technology, and this has a 12.3-inch gauge cluster in front of you and a 10.25-inch screen for the infotainment, which is the smaller infotainment screen. There's a 12.3-inch infotainment screen on the newer 2023, I believe, 8 Series, and some of the other BMWs also have it now. But have you seen the new one with a big widescreen in the new 7 Series? That's going to be really cool. But nonetheless, the BMW infotainment system is iDrive. It's fantastic. I have said very, very good things about BMW infotainment, and it's obviously no different in here. It's easy to use. I find it very easy to get used to. The graphics are very clean, very crisp, clear, not many complaints, at least from my standpoint, on the infotainment system. One thing that some people get annoyed about is how deep the menus are, but you don't really have to fiddle with the menus. You can kind of put everything at the touch of your fingertips with the customizable widgets, so you don't have to mess with all the menus. Now, to wrap up the front seats before I move to the back, some of the amenities. The M850i comes standard with a panoramic roof, but interestingly, this one is optioned with a carbon fiber roof, so you lose the panoramic roof, which is quite an interesting option on a, I don't know, on a non-sporty car or a non-sports car. Of course, this is a 4-door car, but nonetheless, this one does have a optional carbon fiber roof and optional carbon fiber pieces, bringing the center of gravity down a little bit, and the roof on the, the weight on the roof actually comes down as well. Beyond that, the charging, you have 3 charging capabilities. You have a wireless charger, you have a USB Type A and a USB Type C in the glove compartment. And as far as storage room goes, plenty of storage space. The glove compartment, the glove compartment is there. The glove compartment has plenty of room. And then in the center compartment here, again, plenty of storage room, enough for a sunglass holder, minor knickknacks. And the store pockets on the doors are actually very good as well. So plenty of storage room in the M850i. So let me take you to the back and show you what it's like over there. All right, so now the back seats, and this is one area that I would certainly be concerned about as far as a 4-door coupe with the Gran Coupe sloping roof. But one interesting thing about the 8 Series is that it's a max capacity of 5 people. You can actually have somebody sitting here in the middle. There's a seat belt. It's not one of those things where you can basically break some rules and sit in the center, but it's truly a 5-seater, 5-occupant sedan. So as far as room goes, so when I'm sitting here, my hair is touching the ceiling, but it isn't an uncomfortable space. It's actually pretty comfortable. There is a center section here that allows the backseat passengers to control the air conditioning, and there are additional 2 USB Type-C chargers here. So thumbs up for BMW giving the backseat passengers a charging option. And as far as this center section here, so give me a second, let me do a quick switcheroo and sit here and give you some perspective. The center section is a little bit higher, so my head is almost touching the ceiling here. I would say I could probably sit here, but if you're somebody who's gonna feel claustrophobic or you don't like the ceiling touching your head, you might get a little annoyed sitting here. At 5'11", as I said, I am touching it, so probably a little taller than me, definitely touching the roof. So if you're a little shorter, 3 children, no issues sitting in the center seat. So let me switch over here because it's a little uncomfortable. So that's basically it on the interior and the back seat of the M850i. It is on the sportier end of an interior. It doesn't feel as big as like a 7 Series. It's definitely sportier and kind of wraps around you, especially sitting in the driver's seat. And the overall interior space is just a nice place to be with really good interior amenities as well. So with that out of the way, now let's go ahead and take this on the road and see what it feels like behind the wheel. All right, so now the driving portion of the M850i, and as always, this is what the key looks like. It's a rather bland key. It does have the M flag here, which kind of gives it some flair, but overall, it's rather underwhelming. But anyway, now the visibility out front is fantastic. Over shoulders is very good. It does have a great 360-degree camera, and the blind spot monitoring, everything as far as safety is built into this. Even at a standard level, you get plenty of safety equipment. As far as base price goes, I believe the 2023 model starts at $106,000, and of course you can add on options and all these things, but the M850i comes packed with a bunch of standard features from the factory. So now let's go ahead and turn this thing on and go for a quick drive. Foot on the brake, start stop in the crystal button here, which is very cool. And it starts up with just a general tone of a V8, nothing really outlandish. It's definitely tuned to be quiet, at least at startup in comfort mode. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in sport mode, actually in Sport Plus, and then the baffles open up immediately. It becomes a deeper tone in here, and you can definitely tell the difference between Sport or Comfort, Sport, and Sport Plus. Here you got some of those pops, and let's wait for some traffic to pass by. Put it in manual mode, downshift to first. Oh my goodness, wow. Wow, 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 wow. This is so fast. Ooh, I'm going pretty quick. Man, this is surprisingly fast. It's almost, wow, I'm inclined to say that this is faster than the advertised 3.7 seconds. It accelerates pretty violently. And one of the things about it is that it's very effortless. Because the engine and the transmission, it all kind of works very, very well. And from an engagement standpoint, it's actually very good because the exhaust barks and the pops that you get in Sport and Sport Plus mode, it enhances the sportiness of the car and kind of levels up some of the expectations that you will have getting into this M850i, because of course it has an M in front of that 850. You're expecting it to be somewhat sporty. Let's give it some go here again. Yeah, it's very fast. Brakes are also very good. Comes to a stop very, very nicely. It is almost addicting to drive this car fast in a straight line, and it's very, very good at doing that, and it's so easy and everything. You just put your foot on the floor, the transmission downshifts by itself, and it's just so nice, the thrust you get out of this car. The selling point as far as sportiness is definitely the straight line speed, because this is violently fast in a straight line, and I would say faster than advertised. Now the rest of it, the transmission is very good. I'm going to go ahead and put it back in comfort mode. The transmission is very good, very responsive, either on upshifts or on downshifts, whether it's doing it by itself or whether I'm using the paddle shifters. Now, the other surprising thing about this car is the suspension, and that it's properly sporty. You definitely do get some sportiness feel from the ride. Comfortable, but don't come in here expecting a super lofty, cushiony experience. It's definitely not as cushiony and as lofty as a 7 Series. So have your expectations checked, but still good enough to drive on a daily basis, and also good enough to give you the sporty feedback that you're expecting in the M550 name or M850 name. Now, the brakes again are adequate, more than enough braking power for this amount of power or engine horsepower. But the one short point, or the one downside of this car, is the steering and the feedback that you get from it. I saw this in the M240i, the new one that I drove, and it's the same here. Very, very numb feeling steering. I'm basically getting nothing from the road or the front tires. All right, so who is this car for? I think if you're someone who is looking for something that is easy to drive fast in a straight line, and that gives you that sporty feel when you're driving fast straight. This is absolutely fantastic at doing that. Now, it is a heavier car, so it's not like the best as far as sportiness and turning and doing things like that, but in a straight line, it is straight addicting and very, very fun. Now, from a daily standpoint, it is very comfortable as well. Just don't expect 7 Series types of comfort, but again, it does meet expectations for the brand association, BMW's. Oh, this is a comfortable riding, luxurious car, and it definitely meets that expectation and has a decent level of comfort and sportiness balance. So is this a good car? I think so. I think this is actually a great car. It depends on your situation as well. The middle seat in the back there is somewhat elevated, and an adult size individual is probably going to hit their head. But otherwise, the interior is sporty, so this is a good alternative for somebody who's looking for a 4-door car but doesn't want a 5 Series and doesn't want the super loftiness of a 7 Series, wants something sportier, something a little bit funner to drive. That is, this M850i is for you. It is a fantastic car, and it's just, BMW makes good cars. All of their cars, say what you want, they meet a certain level of expectation, and they deliver a very high quality driving experience and also a very high quality ownership experience as well. So that's pretty much all I've got to say. If you've got any other questions, make sure you leave me a comment down below or send me a message on Instagram at DriveSteady. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and also subscribe if you haven't. But thank you for watching this video. Until next time, drive steady.